We are one day away from the final road game of the season for the Louisville Cardinals. Jeff Brom's team traveling down to Coral Gables to take on the Miami Hurricanes. We're talking about keys to victory for the team on today's episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast with a very interesting tidbit of recruiting news. So with that being said, let's get right on into the show.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use the code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Joining me today, I didn't think he was going to have it in him. He's been dealing with a little bit of sickness, but weekly guest of the show, Grant Mulligan, State of Louisville football analyst, is back, and he is just in time to preview the upcoming matchup against Miami. G-Money, what's going on, man?
It's the MJ flu game episode, except for the fact that I didn't have the flu. I was just like mildly sick, but my voice before today was terrible. And I didn't think that the good Locked On folks wanted to see and hear me in that kind of state. So I waited, healed up so I could be my A1, the best product. I'm thinking about you guys. Okay. I'm only going to put my best foot forward
honorable
when I come up on the Locked On show. Okay. I couldn't let the fans down.
You couldn't let them down. You couldn't let them down. Well,
hear me.
I felt a little bit insecure because maybe insecure is not the word, but I guess nervous, you should say, is the week that you didn't come onto this show, Louisville lost. And I was like, if he doesn't come onto this show, is there going to be some consistency? But we may never know.
I was going to make it one way or the next. I was going to make it.
Hey, there you go. Keys to victory. We'll talk offense first segment, defense second segment. We'll also talk about some key recruiting news. 3-star edge rusher Cole McConathy flipped from Louisville to Miami just ahead of the clash between the two. Grant, maybe this is how you feel. I feel like statistically speaking and judging both of these teams side by side, playing style-wise, they're pretty similar in a lot of ways. This is essentially a toss-up game. I've seen places that have Louisville as the favorite, some as Miami as a 1-point favorite, and a lot of other places as a toss-up. Offensively speaking, with Jawar Jordan less than 100%, with Jamari Thrash maybe not truly 100% either. What's the game plan here for Jeff Brom's team? What's the key to victory?
I think offensively is just being able to produce on a consistent basis and not getting behind the sticks. I think one of the things that have held us back the most as an offense is getting ourselves in situations where we're behind the chains and putting Jack Plummer in situations where he doesn't thrive and putting him in situations to fail. So, I mean, we all know at this point in the season what Plummer is, what he isn't, and the best way to succeed is to try to keep him in situations where he can. In our best games, we've seen him being used mostly as a game manager and right. Just moving the sticks, not having to be the one to go and get the huge play. Our big plays coming from plays that you wouldn't expect. A curl route, slip a tackle and take it 60 yards, or a run, break through the tackles, gun it 85 like Garendo. We have the guys to do it, but in a team like this, that when you look at the stats side by side where we match up really similarly, I mean, we're talking about we're less than 10 slots ahead of them in terms of team offense. We're less than 10 slots ahead of them in terms of team defense. We're really in that same ballpark. It just hasn't shown up in the wins and losses. And I think if we were playing on a neutral site or if we were playing at Louisville, it'd be a much different story. But we can't ignore that the home field advantage in Miami is going to be playing an effect. And I think we need to focus on not aiming for the big play, not looking to stomp them down, but to play our offense our way, stay ahead of the sticks, not put Plummer into dangerous situations because they got some good safeties, they got some good defensive backs who can make plays on the ball. And I just don't want to see us get in that kind of situation. So stay ahead of the sticks, keep the run game going early, don't create third and longs, and I think we'll come out of this one with a victory.
On yesterday's show, my key player to watch for the Cardinals was Jack Plummer. And I don't usually like going with the quarterback because I feel as if choosing the quarterback as the player to watch sort of is lazy. It's cliche. But when you go up against a top 10 rushing defense, which I mean, Louisville has done that before this season multiple times, this defense that Miami has also is very good in getting after the quarterback. It's almost not necessarily a carbon copy of what we see from our Cardinals, but they're pretty similar. Now, Miami has a ton of talent on that defense. Cameron Kinchins in the back end, Reuben Bain, who a lot of Louisville fans know. On the edge, Leonard Taylor in the middle, who is a projected first-round pick for the Miami Hurricanes. I felt like Plummer was the player to watch because I feel like Miami's going to try to do what Virginia did. They're going to try to stack the box, especially if Jawar Jordan's not 100%. And I feel like we're going to see situations where Plummer's going to have to extend drives. Yeah, we talk about this whole term of being a game manager. That's fine, but let's be honest. Let's call it as we see it. Game managers still have to go out and do what they need to do. So don't get too caught up in that term as if, Plummer is essentially having to be on autopilot. No, he has to go out there and make winning plays as well.
No, I think you're right. It's just gotta keep him engaged from the beginning to the end. I mean, we can't get into a situation in which, excuse me,
you're forgiven.
Sorry
dude.
about that. Still in the recovery process. We can't get into a situation in which we get him out of his comfort zone. We got to keep him within the comfort zone as much as possible. We need to, especially against this kind of pass rush, we need to keep our pass protection in lock. We've got experienced guys. We've got guys out there who can match up. This talent for talent. Miami's a great defense. There are a bunch of guys who can go out and get it on defense. A guy that we really wish that we had in Reuben Bain. And we have to match talent with talent here. We have to go out there and get it. In the run game and the pass game, they have a very, very talented defensive line, and we got to keep Plummer upright, and we got to keep the holes in offense to keep the run game on track.
I definitely agree there, and I'm not saying that Plummer can't go out and get it done. I just think that I think the passing attack is going to be a key focus because I feel like this Miami defense is like Louisville. They're very good in the front seven, especially getting after quarterbacks, forcing teams out of their comfort zones, especially ones that like to run the football. But I also think that this Hurricanes defense also gives up some big-time plays through the air, and Louisville has the receivers to go out and do it. If Plummer is in a spot to where he is comfortable making the reads, and I think another thing is that he has to be better under pressure as well from this Miami front that has been very, very good.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's a situation to where I feel like the key for me offensively, it's almost like the same each and every week, it feels like. I feel like we get a little bit redundant because Louisville, regardless of the opposition, seems to impose their will in different ways. Quickly, before we go to the defense, how much do you think how much opportunity will be given to a guy like Isaac Garendo, who has turned in 2 very good performances?
Well, I thought he would get more opportunities than he did last week, given the state of Jawar Jordan's hamstring injury and coming off the game that he did have. He turned limited touches into huge yardage and huge opportunities. And, he broke off that long touchdown run. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself and say that he's going to get the bulk of the carries or he's going to get more than we think, because I really expected him to get more work against Virginia than he did. But he still made the most of it. So I don't want to say he's going to get any more than he normally does, but he's been doing a really, really good job of taking advantage of it. So I think we're looking somewhere in between the 10 to 14 touch range for him, whether it be in the run game or in the pass game. If we can get him involved, all the better. I would like to see him get more touches, especially in trying to get Jawar Jordan healthier down the stretch. We'll need him for the ACC championship, knock on wood, and for the bowl game. But we're getting down the stretch here. It'd be really great to get both backs involved. I think there's plenty of a ball to go around in that backfield between the two of them. So I would like to see him get an uptick in carries versus what he got against Virginia, because he proved that he deserved it. But I don't want to estimate just because of what we've seen the staff do. He came off that huge game, but still Jordan dominated the touches in the game in Virginia. So I don't want to get too far ahead and say that we're going to get a 20-touch game, but I think his floor of 10 touches is absolutely within realm of expectation.
I do as well. And the other thing is it feels like we don't get a ton of health update on Jawar Jordan. This staff does a really good job of holding things close to vest when it comes to injuries and stuff of the nature. So that's something to focus on. Now we're going to take a moment to before we go over to the defensive side of the ball, we're going to tell you about a great opportunity over with our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's literally just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And with PrizePicks, listen, this is the biggest thing here. With the basketball season, you can combine projections across different sports. So let's say you could take LeBron James and Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of three-pointers made plus receptions. There's no other platform that does that. And if you want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like Meek Mill, like Andrew Schultz, then you can now find at Community Plays their picks under the promos tab. So do yourself a favor, go check that out over at prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. If you use the code lockedoncollege, you'll get a first deposit match up to $100. Once again, prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. While using the code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Grant Mulligan with me here on this lovely Friday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast, discussing the upcoming matchup against Miami that will happen tomorrow, noon kickoff down at Hard Rock Stadium. Grant, defensively, it seems like one of the constants this season is that there's seemingly a revolving door of quarterbacks against the teams that Louisville plays. Emory Williams was projected to be the starter. Unfortunately, had a very horrific injury against Florida State. He will miss the rest of the season. All signs lead to Miami going back to veteran Tyler Van Dyke, who is having a season to where he has almost as many interceptions as he does touchdowns. I still wouldn't potentially rule out Ja'Cory Brown potentially seeing some time, but that might just be me trying to expect the unexpected. With Tyler Van Dyke here, what's the key to victory for this Louisville defense, in your opinion?
I'm old enough to remember when Tyler Van Dyke was getting first-round NFL draft comps.
What do you mean, like this summer?
Yes, exactly. I was
like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, if
exactly.
you're 1 year, if you're a year old, you remember Tyler Van Dyke getting first-round draft.
I was joking. But I think that this is one of those matchups in which, like Virginia, they've got some really good players at the receiver position with some unknowns at the quarterback position. I guess Tyler Van Dyke's not so much of an unknown as it is more of an inconsistency issue there. But I think this is a game in which we're going to need to see some really strong play out of our safeties. You've got a guy who has some turnover proneness to him, but you've got some guys who can win on the outside. So we're going to need our guys, Devin Neal, Cam Kelly, Josh Minkins, to be in position to take advantage of some potentially errant throws, looking the way of some really talented guys at receiver. It's going to put our corners to the test. They've got, this isn't like Virginia where they've got one guy who can absolutely take over a game. I mean, this is a fairly deep wide receiver core, and they've got three guys who've demanded quite a few catches, and they've produced well from a yardage standpoint. So I think the key to victory from the defensive standpoint here is going to be our safety play. I think that having big days, I think we've got multiple interceptions here, opportunities, and I think it's going to start with trying to take away the deep part of the field and try to bait some throws with a quarterback who's already prone to make some errant decisions.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that, the one weakness for this defense is that opposing teams have the opportunity to take the top off of the defense with the big plays. And I think that for me is one of the main things that Louisville needs to focus on. Tyler Van Dyke, very prone to turning the ball over, but also he's shown throughout his career that he can make these throws. He was very, very solid at the beginning of the year. He's been very bad, I guess you could say, before he got benched. in favor of Emory Williams. A lot of Miami fans will, look at the play calling as one of the reasons why there is an issue, but they have a very solid receiving core. They have Jacoby George. They have Xavier Restrepo. Colby Young is another name to focus on. All three of those guys have essentially 500 yards receiving. They like to spread the ball around. And all three of those guys have at least 4 receiving touchdowns. Very balanced effort. I think that the name of the game for Miami's offense is balance. For me, the key to the game, pass rush. Get after the quarterback, because we've seen that Louisville is at their strength when they're getting after the quarterback. It essentially made life miserable for Sam Hartman. It made life miserable for Riley Leonard, for Kyron Drones. But when the pass rush wasn't getting home as much, look what happens. Anthony Calandria had a pretty decent game against the Cardinals last Thursday. Was able to run throughout, and that's another thing, is Van Dyke is not as much of a runner as Calandria is, thankfully. And maybe Virginia has better receiving play. Virginia has maybe one of the best receiving cores in the country. But this Miami offense is no slouch. There's a ton of talent across this team. There's a ton of talent across this offense. The big play that's been the Achilles heel for this Louisville team literally for my whole life is giving up the big play. And I think that the defense will be in a good spot if they just don't allow Miami to take the top off of the defense.
And one thing, touching on what you talked about with pass rush, this is not an easy team to do it up against. I mean, we're talking about a team that's only allowed 12 sacks. It was Emory Williams only got sacked 3 times, and Van Dyke's only taken 9 sacks all year. That's just a shade over a sack a game. But, I mean, we're looking at last week. We had a quarterback or a team that was giving up over 3.5 sacks a game, and we weren't really able to capitalize as well as we would have liked. And this is a team that protects its passer quite a bit better. So this is going to be a good matchup in terms of talent. They've got some really good guys on the offensive line. And while Van Dyke might not be the runner that we faced in the past, he is still able to evade the pressure a little bit. Use the legs to kind of get himself out of dangerous opportunities. So I think that you're right in that we need to get it churning, because it's not something that they've faced a whole lot this year, but it's going to be tough against one of the least sacked teams in the country. It
definitely will be. Like I said, these teams are almost too similar in a lot of different ways. That's why I feel like this game is pretty much a toss-up according to Vegas. And hopefully on Saturday it's not as stressful, and we end up getting a victory and clinching in a spot in the ACC championship. But we'll talk about that when the time comes. I did want to end the week, however, with a key bit of recruiting news. Not only did Louisville lose a commitment this week, the decommitment, I should say, the prospect flipped to Miami. That's very, very interesting. Not sure that I've seen anything like that from this program almost ever. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what this means for the football program, etc. here momentarily after we talk about our friends over at Athletic Brewing. For me, the game changer of the week for the Cardinals is going to be the pass rush. I think that it is going to play a key role in what this defense is going to be able to do, but make no mistake about it, the game changer of the week varies from week to week unless you were talking about non-alcoholic brews. In that case, Athletic Brewing Company continues to be your game changer, making over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beer, including IPAs, golden, sours, and more. The brews are great tasting and award-winning, beating out full-strength beers in global competitions. For me, the main thing is the versatility. They're fit for all times, whether you're watching the game on Saturday, tackling work, working out, whatever it may be. No hangovers are involved. So take advantage of the opportunity. Find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic beers at a store near you, or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers use the code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. Final segment of this G-Money episode of the show. Grant joining me, despite not being 100%, still trucking it through, just like Jawar Jordan with his hamstring issue. Grant, key news. Haven't really gotten a lot of recruiting news really since the summer. This is no secret that Louisville's really going to address the needs via the transfer portal, and it's going to be smaller high school classes, right? Well, they did end up having a decommitment this week. 3-star edge rusher Cole McConathy from I think it's Spanish Fort, Alabama, was one of Louisville's lowest ranked commits, I believe, but seemingly outplaying that from his senior season, or what we saw. He ended up flipping to Miami. First of all, overall thoughts of a player flipping to the school that your former team is playing, and secondly, how big of a loss is this for Brom's team?
I think it's more funny than anything. I don't know if he necessarily meant anything by it. The rumor out there is that he wanted playing time early and he wanted opportunity to see the field early, and he just looked at the guys who we had in the stable of edge rushers and thought he would have a better chance at Miami, and I truly hope he does. I think highly of him. I think he absolutely outplayed the low 3-star ranking. He was a kid who I thought could end up as the sleeper of the class. He didn't have a ton of bend to him, but he had a lot of effort. He outplayed, for sure. He outplayed his ranking. I think he had a ton of motor to him, played really hard, made a lot of plays in the backfield. He was really, really destructive against offenses. He played really hard on a snap-to-snap basis. I don't think that we'll have a whole lot of trouble replacing at that position particularly. The staff has done an excellent job recruiting that position, both in the high school ranks and in the transfer portal. So if it was a different position, I'd be a little more concerned. I wish him the best of luck. I truly do. I think he was probably one of, if not the most underrated players that we had in the class. I thought he had a really high potential learning under Mark Hagan and in this defense. So the timing is strange. I don't necessarily know if he meant anything by it. Like, I don't really feel like it was to slight us in any way. I just think that the opportunity was better for him.
Even if he did, let the kid have his moment. I mean, it is what it is. But you're right. One thing is interesting, though, is that I feel like Miami has a ton of talent on their defensive line. So it's like, I mean, is there definitely going to be that much more playing time in Miami year one? But it is what it is. 'Cause, I mean, you have Reuben Bain, you have some of these other guys, so it does make you wonder. But I've also heard that. I mean, it's a testament to how well they've recruited. I mean, think about it. I mean, you have all the players of Popeye Williams, Vic Brown, Mason Riger is probably back next year.
Mr. Capers.
I was about to say TJ Capers, a name that people haven't been talking about recently. So he is definitely another player to focus on. But, I mean, I agree. I think that really, I mean, truthfully speaking, you look at this recruiting class, and I'm not going to say that it's a bad recruiting class because, I mean, there's a ton of talent and there's multiple prospects that are ranked a 4-star on at least one recruiting site. So there's talent here. But when you look at the 2024 commits, which there currently are 14 of them, I truly think there's like 5 or 6 that I'd be like, damn, that sucks. You know what I'm saying? That's no slight, but I mean, that's just kind of the world that we live in via the transfer portal, that you can make your team better and you don't have to bank on high school development. You can go get a player from the portal immediately to fill that need. And I just don't necessarily think that. Now, granted, personally, I feel like Ashton Gelati's gone, but from the people that I've talked to, keep saying it's not of a done deal as you think. And I mean, at this point, I guess we'll see. But I mean, who knows? Gelati coming back, I think, could definitely make it to where, a 3-star guy wouldn't want to come here. But I mean, that is what it is. But overall,
you got to think about last year's class too. I mean, we got some real dudes at that position too, who haven't even seen the field field yet. Like Adonijah Green, 4-star dude who had a lot of production his senior year. I mean, we had some guys in last year's class. So even without Ashton coming back, and the nature of the business is that decommitments are going to happen. I mean, it's no like indictment of the staff. Like Alabama will lose kids every now and again. It's just what happens. It's just the nature of the recruiting business. I wish him the best. He always, I mean, he really seemed like he was a good kid, and I do hope that it's a good opportunity for him. So strange timing, but wish you the best at Miami.
Yeah, no, I think that's all it comes down to. But hey, that's going to wrap up this final episode of the week before the Miami game. I'm actually heading down to Miami this weekend. and I will
Got a
be in
party.
attendance at Hard Rock Stadium. But just a reminder, I won't be having any recordings until Tuesday, unfortunately, because I can't bring any recording equipment with
He's
me.
gonna be hungover until then because he's gonna party that hard in Miami.
Celebrating that
That's how long
ACC
that-
championship, hopefully. But like I said, it's going to wrap up today's episode of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here next week. Go Cards.